I said, hey, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
It is time for happy hour. It is the Man Cave Happy Hour. Whiskey, cigars, spirits, the stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
I am Matt Fox.
Matt Fox. We are in the bunker. We're always in a bunker.
This is kind of like our bunker.
It is.
Is that what it is?
It's our own private bunker.
Yeah, we're in Southfield, Michigan, in the our podcast studios here, and we actually we're doing just a taste tonight on the Man Cave.
Oh, we have lots of tasting.
Yes, we do.
There's a plethora.
We've got samples.
It was like a mail call, and it's like Colleen's like, you got a package. She gets angry, and she goes, "What did you buy?" And I'm like, "No, honey, they're samples in these gorgeous,
oh my gosh,
gorgeous bottles.
Just
amazing. We're gonna find out about the packaging, the coloring,
yep.
And all kinds of stuff because we're going right to the horse's mouth on this one. This was a lovely mail call from Bladnoch Distillery.
Bladnoch.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do an unboxing.
I know.
Darn.
I know. But it's a blended Scotch whiskey.
I am very, very excited.
It's Scotch, Matt. What do we know if it's Scotch?
Scotch makes your pants fall down.
Well, that, yeah. But origins in Scotland.
Well, yes, it does.
So the distillery there,
yes,
in Scotland, and I think, yeah, it's in the Lowlands.
The Lowlands,
I believe. But we're gonna find out.
Yeah, we're gonna find all this out
because we're gonna talk to Will
Pitchforth. He is the head of, hey, Will, how are you, sir? Will, you're the head of commercial for Bladnoch Distillery, and you've been in the industry for quite a while now, but you've really kind of moved around and got yourself acclimated to the spirits industry. And I'm really excited to learn about your history, as is Jamie.
That is it, really, because Will, I mean, we want to talk about the Scotch. We have these two fabulous bottles. You guys have an array of different expressions that we can learn about. But before we do that, Will, tell me about your childhood.
Yeah. Well, I think you can tell by my accent that I'm not Scottish. In fact, I am from the antipodes of Scotland. I'm from New Zealand, little isle in the South Pacific, known to many Americans as home of Lord of the Rings, kiwi birds, and pristine nature. So actually, not too different in terms of the countryside to Scotland. But now I live here in Australia, which is where David, the owner of Bladnoch, also lives. And of course, it's a bit of an unusual one to be owning a distillery from Australia, based in Scotland. But it's the first time that we know that it's ever happened, and hopefully not the last. Hopefully, we're making a good impression on the on the Scotch whiskey industry, doing things our way with a bit of an accent, as you guys would consider it. But,
well, we sound pretty funny to you as well.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. It's
the accent.
It's content as well as the accent.
What's your background? What were you like as a young man, and what brought you to the spirits industry?
So, look, funnily enough, I actually did my my undergrad degree in biomedical science, and so I remember sitting with a drinks company CEO that when I used to work, and he said, why do you go into selling liquor when you're in biomedical science? Do you want to make it, or and I was like, look, honestly, it was one of those things where I was working in a hospital, and on the weekends I was working in a cocktail bar as a bartender. And what I actually really loved was the people, it was the drinks, it was the product I was making, and go to work in a hospital. I don't know if this is the right time to joke about it, but nobody who's in a hospital wants to be there, right? Everyone, hopefully, who's in a bar actually does want to be there, and it was just a great environment. I was learning a lot. I was really interested in the history of the products that I was pouring, and so I worked in hospitality for a few years. I still think that my dad would love me to rediscover medicine and go into go be a doctor. But I've had a great career, and it's really taken me all around the world. Working in the liquor business. I lived in Paris for a number of years, working for a big multinational in France, and that role took me to everywhere from Uruguay to South Africa to Norway to the Middle East. It really was a great opportunity to travel around the world, talking about whiskey, talking about all the range of liquors that I was selling, and then came back here to Australia. My wife's Australian. We started a family, and basically got a call from a recruiter saying, "Look, we've got this Australian entrepreneur who's bought the Scotch whisky distillery. He used to work in the yogurt business, and so he's got a real passion for whiskey, but he's looking for some people who've got international experience in the trade." And that was me. So that was over 4 years ago now. I've been working at Bladnoch. So.
Because you were, I believe, because I was reading something, you were at with Chivas Brothers at one division.
Right.
And
I worked with Patrick Ricard, actually, which was the owner of Chivas Brothers is French.
Okay.
And I worked in the head office in Paris,
right.
Mostly working in the on-trade, so hotels and bars and clubs and those sorts of venues, especially in like developing countries. Helping the local teams kind of understand our strategy for getting people to try our drinks, and of course Chivas Brothers with brands like Glenlivet and Aberlour, and of course Chivas Regal, Ballantine's, some of the world's biggest and best known scotches, as well as some of the smaller, lesser known ones. And I think it's something that we're interestingly seeing now is that the big multinationals are either selling off small brands, as of course Chivas did with Glenallachie most recently, bought by Billy Walker. Or they're buying or building small ones. I mean, Chivas Brothers and Diageo alone are got loads of projects on the go. Brora is not far from reopening. I mean, Rosebank's being revived by Ian McLeod. So you're getting lots of new and interesting things going on in the industry from big and small players, where they're really not just focusing on the giant distilleries, the Glenfiddich, Glenlivets and of the world, but also also some smaller players that there's now real interest for diversity in their Scotch.
Wow.
So Bladnoch has been a player for some time. Bladnoch is a very old distillery, if I'm not mistaken. 200 years history.
Yeah, like 1817 was the founding of Bladnoch. We took over in its current incarnation in 2015. We are a lowlands Scotch. You mentioning in the intro that I think we're a lowlands. In fact, we're the southernmost distillery in Scotland. And
okay.
Look, I'm not fully convinced that that regionality is quite as essential as some others in the industry would. But hey, it's nice to have superlative. It's nice to be the most something, and we are the most southern, and so that's
all right. So that was going to be my question about Bladnoch, and because again, Matt and I we've been doing the show, and the reason we started the show is because we know nothing. And we wanted to learn from people who know things and learn along the way. And we've been doing a lot of whiskey, American whiskey, Scotch whiskey, bourbons, and we haven't done a ton of Scotch. And our Scotch knowledge is limited. I know there's Speyside, and I know there's a Lowlands, and the other ones is more sea and a bit more salty, and that comes into play supposedly. Like you said, I thought that was interesting that you said you don't think it plays as big of a role as some people say.
Look,
what's the difference between the two regions, and how many different regions are there?
Yeah, so look, there's sort of generally 5 or sometimes 6 regions who you talk to, whether it's the industry body or people who write books about these things, which is definitely not me. So you've got the Highlands, which is a big region, lots of distilleries, and then you've got Speyside, which is a sub-region of the Highlands. So it's just a little kind of a pocket in the middle of the Highlands, which is near the River Spey, hence Speyside, where you've got a huge concentration of distilleries, and that's good quality water source and access to trade routes and things like that. It's quite a established whiskey making area, and there's, I would say, 40 to 50 distilleries in Speyside. You've then got Islay, the Isle of Islay, which is an island off the west coast of Scotland, which is where you've got like 8 that are producing whiskey, but I think there's 9 or maybe 10, possibly even 11 that are under construction. It's a pretty sought after area, and that's where your brands like Kalila and Bunnahabhain and Ardbeg and Kilchoman are all on the Isle of Islay, which is traditionally very peaty. But then you've got Bruichladdich, which is on Islay, which makes an unpeated style. Hence that, you can't just say, well, all Islas are smoky, peaty whiskies, because Bruichladdich makes a very lovely unpeated whiskey. And there are distilleries on the mainland that make peated whiskey. So people like the regions, because it's like with wine, it kind of helps you orientate yourself towards what have I tried from the lowlands. But there's so much character that comes from the distillery itself, and you got to remember, just because something's distilled in Islay, it doesn't have to be aged. You can take the barrel to the mainland and age it there. You have something in the lowlands that goes up north to the highlands and ages, and so there's an element of the distillery character, but also where it ages. If that makes a difference, you don't know where your cask has been aged, and so it's not a surefire way of tracking it. So in terms of the lowlands where we are, there's really only half a dozen distilleries that are making volume where you would ever see it in the United States. So luckily Bladnoch's joined that crew, but the two that are probably best known are Auchentoshan and Glenkinchie. So those would be relatively well known. But again, the lowlands region, I mean, you go into a Total Wine or a K&L or something like that, or your local your local state liquor store, and there could be a section for Speyside and Highlands, and maybe a section for Islay. But it's unlikely to see a section for lowlands because there's only two or three bottles there, so it's not enough to. So we're trying to support the lowland area because it gets us a shelf. And, you want your own shelf, you've made it. So
right.
There's a couple of other lowland distilleries. I mentioned Rosebank, which is being rebuilt. I mean, that was a bit of a titan of the lowlands in recent years, as these older expressions are fetching some pretty crazy prices. And there's Annandale, not far away from us. You've got Glasgow Distillery Company. There's loads underway that are being. You've got Borders Distillery. Generally, these ones don't make it over to the US though, especially with what's going on the last couple of years in the US, it's a pretty tough time for scotches over that way.
So Bladnoch, how many different expressions are there? Because we're looking at the pure Scots, the blends, but I know you have several expressions.
Sure. So, look, the first thing that we started with was pure Scot, our blended whiskey, and Bladnoch came later. There had to be a process of tasting all the barrels and formulating some new expressions. It was obviously brand new packaging as well. That was a big process. We had these fantastic square bottles, which I know you guys don't have, but
yeah, please share.
Yeah.
For those that are watching on video here with us.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the bottle. Look at that.
So this is a Bladnoch 19-year-old. This is one of our newest expressions. Not yet in the US, probably around holiday times. This one will come to the US, and this is a PX cask matured. So this is a lovely, very rich 19-year-old single malt. So quite a different looking bottle to most of the other whiskeys out there. And so Bladnoch was a bit of a longer process to bring to the market. And we initially launched with 3 expressions: a California red wine cask matured, a Oloroso sherry cask, and a 25-year-old port pipe. And there's a very, very small quantity of those older expressions, those kind of first release expressions, still available in the US. You can spot them around and about. Samsara is still in our portfolio, but the 15-year-old Oloroso and the 25-year-old port pipe is nearly done. Because really, when we bought the place, we limited to whatever the casks were that were in stock. Once they're gone, they're gone. That's the sad thing about whiskey. You can't kind of pick that flower twice.
Right.
So unfortunately, once it's gone, it's gone. And therefore, we've developed our range. And our new master distiller, well, he's not so new anymore. He's been here for a couple of years. Nick Savage. He's developed a whole new range of whiskeys. And so we have still the 2 pure Scots that you've got in front of you. We released earlier this year a peated pure Scot called Midnight Peach.
Oh,
I know that some people are listening, and this makes some great radio. But here's the Midnight Peach, Midnight Peach flavor, which is the smoky, sort of peaty cask finished pure Scot.
Oh,
and also a whole lot of new Bladnoch expressions. So a new, basically the kind of the hero product of Bladnoch, which is called Vinaya, which is a sherry cask. Got our 11-year-old, which is a bourbon cask, a 14-year-old, which is the new Oloroso expression, the 19, which just showed you guys before, the PX, and there's still new things coming out. We're a relatively small production distillery compared to some of the others in the game, and that means that smaller limited releases just has to be what we do. We haven't got the ability to get a bottle on every shelf, although we are growing, and of course there's new casks that become old enough to bottle every year, and so those are helping us scale up.
So two things then, Jamie, road trip.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We need to take a road trip.
Sure.
And then secondly, one of the things that we've learned by doing the show, Will, is that on the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, every distillery is very friendly with one another. And you just rattled off and shared with us 10 different distilleries. Do you guys collaborate and come together every once in a while and just kind of share ideas as to what's going on out in the market?
Well, one of the things that it's essential to remember about blends is that you can't make a blend if you've only got one distillery. The whole, it's in the word, it's a blend, and I think some people probably haven't realized that if you take a 5-year-old Bladnoch and a 10-year-old Bladnoch and a 15-year-old Bladnoch, it's called Bladnoch. It's still a single malt, and that's something that I think some people haven't quite realized, is that it's not a blend if it's all from the same distillery. The way you make it a blend is you blend it with someone else's whiskey. And so that requires relationships, because most of the major companies make blends, whether it's the huge ones like Johnny Walker and Chivas, or whether it's a smaller brand like Pure Scott. There's a need to source whiskeys from other distilleries, and a lot of these recipes are very old. And when you're in a business like ours, where distilleries get sold and bought and change hands all the time, it's a tough game if you have to use only brands of single malt of distilleries you own. And therefore, the relationships absolutely do transcend, whoever happens to own a distillery at the time. Because if you need a particular whiskey to help make your proprietary house blend, then you still need a bit of a line on getting the whiskey. There's swaps that go on where it's I'll send you some barrels of mine, you send me some barrels of yours, but I'm talking regularly to the teams at Diageo or William Grant and much smaller distilleries as well. We help each other out, because we're going to stick together. Scotch versus the world. It's a geographically, it's a pretty small place, and but we've got this amazing brand in Bladnoch, but we've got an even stronger international brand with Scotch whiskey, and that's in everybody's interest to protect it. So when things like the infamous tariffs come up, we all band together to go, how do we knock those over? Which obviously we're very happy that they're suspended for now. So
yeah. So, but before we dive into the tastes of these, you're talking about, scotches against the world and protecting each other. But you guys are also doing some work to protect the environment and to protect, is it a river, the Bladnoch River? You're doing some work in giving back and trying to do some preservation. What's that project all about?
So when kind of David was looking for what could he get into after he got out of the yogurt business, when he sold his last company, one thing that really I think drove him was looking beyond just what's going to make profit and what's going to enrich me further. The guy had done very well already. It was thinking beyond that and about, well, what's my impact going to be, and the legacy that's left on the world. So he established a family charity called the Pryor Family Foundation, and they've selected a number of causes which they're really involved with, and a lot of them are around conservation. So the Great Barrier Reef, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, the stunning natural reef, which is very close to me here in Queensland, involved with a big not-for-profit here that's about kind of analysing and research into the coral bleaching in the reef. Worked with another charity called Greening Australia, which is about replanting the forests after the bushfires. Some of you guys might remember the bushfires before the last 7 crises that have hit the world in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
but a couple of years ago, everyone was ringing me from the US, going, "Oh, I've heard about these terrible bushfires," and now everyone's had their own pretty tough couple of years. But it still was there, and a lot of habitat was lost, and a lot of animals really struggled to basically be rehomed after those fires. And so there's some big work there. And the Pryor Family Foundation kind of underpins a lot of what we do at Bladnoch, and David's philosophy, which is about considering the impact you have on the world. So we've got a whole lot of things that we do, especially with Pure Scott. So we're part of 1% for the planet. So 1% of all of our revenue, so that's not profit, that's literally every dollar turned over, goes to environmental causes. We have supported a whole range of environmental causes here in Australia and beyond, and doing more and more in that in the US as Pure Scott starts to grow. But you mentioned the river there, and again, I think a lot of people might not realize just how much water it takes to make whiskey. You've got water that goes into the mash, and you've got water that cools down the stills. We don't have a refrigerator to chill down the pipes. We use river water, and so we've worked really closely with the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, SEPA, to ensure that we absolutely care about the impact that we have on the river. And it's great fishing, great angling off the banks of the River Bladnoch. So it's important that, especially for our distillery manager, who at the end of his day, he's guaranteed to be seen with a fishing rod, a brown trout or a salmon out of the river. And so I think that we have been there for 200 years, and 200 years ago there weren't a whole lot of the highly efficient but also environmentally destructive factory and manufacturing processes that there are today. And so we need to consider, there was minimal impact on the environment from the workings of a distillery 200 years ago. We don't have the right to take advantage of our technology to draw more from the environment than we deserve, basically. So the idea is to still make whiskey and still to consider what impact we're leaving on the land that we're sitting on. I mean, David always talks of himself as a custodian for Bladnoch, because there were many owners before him, and after him there'll be many others. It's not it's not a business that can be kind of captured in one lifetime. And we are distilling whiskey that today none of us will ever taste. That's the thing, is that today we've got whiskey that's 30 plus years old. That's not that's an intergenerational kind of a product, and there's very few industries that really have that kind of forward thinking in terms of creating something that's not going to be consumed by you or maybe even your kids or any of your current employees. That's quite extraordinary. Although that being said, we have one employee who's been with us since 1983. And so he's like, he now gets to drink whiskey that he distilled when he was a young man. So
wow, just the work that you guys are doing to offset, your carbon footprint, if you will, right? Being trying to be neutral. The goal is to be neutral by 2024. Are we getting closer and closer to that? Even before,
absolutely. And I think there's some things that we could do for some quick wins in terms of plastic free in our visitor center. The bottles you guys are holding, we've just updated them. I haven't got any in my office; it's that new. But to remove any plastics outside of the label, and that was the last plastic component. So it's completely plastic free in the bottle. So it'll just be I say aluminium because I say it right, but you guys say aluminum, which is what the cap's made of, which is fully recyclable. The glass is a high recyclable content. The label is actually made of a special material that's got crushed barley in it. So the barley that we use to make it, it's recycled out of crushed barley. In the new direction, we've obviously wood in the top. So we're thinking about lots of other ways that we can really change the physical product. And in a more long-term sense, our team in the UK are led by Nick Savage, are really looking at ways that they can, source raw materials, whether that's the what we use to power the distillery, or the sourcing that we get of all of our raw materials, to make sure that we really reduce the amount of carbon we're putting into the environment. And then, of course, it's looking at the other projects that we can do to sort of sequestering that carbon back out of the environment to make sure that we are net neutral by 2024. So it's stuff to do, but
it's such a great thing that you guys are doing, because everyone's got to be conscious of their own carbon footprint, but you guys are taking it to that next level by looking at every element of the packaging and the scotch, the blend itself. Everything that you're doing to it is just going to help everyone in the long run. My great grandkids, for example, if they are over in the UK or in Scotland or what have you, hopefully they get to travel. But still, the work that you're doing now is just leaving that legacy, as you were talking earlier.
So, as I say, we're creating whiskey for our kids and grandkids to drink. We want to make sure that they're drinking it in a world that that they're enjoying, that they can enjoy their Scotch in. So.
Yep.
So let's get inside these bottles. So we got the Pure Scott Virgin Oak 43, and then just the Pure Scott
Pure
there.
Scott.
Are these the flagships? What can you tell us about these guys in particular?
The bottle that Matt's got is the flagship, the Pure Scott Signature. It was the first one that we released, and it's kind of the original blend. So
shall we start there?
Yeah, let's start there. So David actually started thinking about Pure Scott before he even owned Bladnoch. Always, really passionate about whiskey. Since he was a young man, he'd have a whiskey with his dad, and started really coming up with an idea to make his own Scotch whiskey, blended Scotch whiskey.
So is Pure Scott was that when it came to fruition when he took over?
Exactly. So he started thinking about Pure Scott. He came up with the name, the brand, before he even bought Bladnoch. And we bought Bladnoch. Well, that's one of the whiskeys that now goes into the Pure Scott blend. But the name, the look, the packaging, everything of that is from David. Okay. And the idea is to make a blend that probably is most similar to the classic Lowland style, which is very light, quite floral. A little bit honey and heather. It's not a big, punchy, smoky, sting the roof of your mouth kind of whiskey. It's 40%, which is the minimum allowed in Scotland, but the flavor is pretty soft. So this is one that very easily can be drunk by itself, but we are really embracing putting Pure Scott, mixing it, putting it into a cocktail, putting it into a mixed drink, which if you go to Scotland, in some regions that's still a capital offense. You are not to mix Scotch. There's a few ridiculous memes going around on some of the Scotch groups that I'm on where they're like, I'm in, the guy is sitting next to the other one and they're in hell. And he goes, oh, what are you in here for? He's like, oh, I'm here for murder. What about you? Oh, I mixed 23-year-old single malt with Coke. And that attitude really prevails in a lot of Scotch drinking circles, but also in Scotland. But at the end of the day, not everybody's drinking their Scotch in the nice little Glencairn glass. Neat, and not everybody can or really wants to. So by saying you can't mix Scotch, you're meaning that a whole range of people are missing out on the experience of drinking Scotch whiskey. And there are some great ways to enjoy it, whether it's with a simple soda or to make a highball, or whether you're mixing it in a cocktail. There's some great cocktails, classics like the whiskey sour or a Rob Roy or even a Rusty Nail. But then more modern ones like the penicillin, fantastic. Probably my favorite Scotch cocktail created by an Australian bartender in New York.
Did you say penicillin?
Penicillin, yeah. This is the real. You need to put a little disclaimer down the bottom, but this is the real fighter for the virus. It's a good shot of Scotch whiskey, honey and ginger syrup, lemon juice, and with a little spray of very peaty whiskey across the top. So
I feel a little pre-skiing coming on here.
Yeah, that's it. That'll really clear away the bugs.
Those guys were on tour. They were doing a promotional tour for a different Scotch brand, and they came through Detroit, and they were pouring he was making the penicillin. So yeah, it was cool. I got to meet those guys. It was kind of neat. It was fun to have those cocktails, and it does, because people often think of Scotch as a neat or on the rocks, and not necessarily as a base and a mix.
Right.
So
but the rocks is controversial. There are some that'll say you shouldn't even put ice in there. And,
right.
I had this conversation with one of my friends who works in the distillery, and I was over there, and it was a hot day for Scotland, so it was like 70 degrees or something. So everyone was in their t-shirts. And and I had a couple of ice cubes in my Pure Scott, and he said, oh, look, the only thing you should add to Scotch is more Scotch. And look, at the end of the day, room temperature here, where I am here in the north of Australia, might be on a summer's day 110, 115. So it's a very different world drinking a Scotch on a 110-degree day without an ice cube in it. And I think Scotland would literally incinerate itself if it got above 100. So, everyone's different around the world. We want them enjoying Scotch. And I think that this obsession with these are the rules you have to enjoy it, it puts a lot of people off. And so when we talk about Pure Scott especially, we try and say to people, look, do it your way and enjoy it. I mean, that being said, I've seen some pretty odd ones. I had a guy mix a Pure Scott with a seltzer, and I was like, I feel like you're pushing a little bit far. But hey, you do you, buddy. You whatever keeps you happy. So
yeah, I'd give him the side eye. Like, really? Come on.
So on the nose, you think Scotch and you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be peaty,
Right.
and I wasn't getting any of that on the nose.
No.
When I first sniffed it, I was like, oh, this is like almost like the sweet, almost like a bourbon. And when you said honey, and I'm like, okay, so there's the sweet, there's the honey.
Yeah.
Just aromatic, very, like you said, very light.
Just to get
aromatically,
and when you taste something, we always try it neat the first time we try something, right?
Yeah.
Because we like to enjoy, at its essence, if you will, right? But for folks that are never had it before or aren't used to this, you can't just do a nose once. You need to get your olfactory senses moving a little bit. You need to nose it a number of times so you can start getting those hints of that vanilla, or maybe I'm getting a little bit of a raisin out of it, almost like a golden raisin. Almost. Okay, that's just kind of where I'm sniffing at, because my olfactory senses are starting to kick in.
Right. I cheated. I dove in. I took a sip, and I get the peat in the sipping. Yeah, it's decidedly a Scotch once you get the sip. On the nose, I wouldn't. If you gave it to me and sniff this, I'd be like, "What is it?" I'll go, "It's a whiskey. It's a bourbon." And on the taste, we're back to Scotch for sure. For me, right?
There's a little bit of peat in there, but you only need a little bit to be able to taste it. So it's it's certainly not a peat forward Scotch. We have the midnight peat, which is for the lovers of a smokier style. But this one really only has the tiniest hint of peated Scotch at blend.
But I wasn't getting anything on the nose.
Really?
And then in the taste, it's not overbearing, but it's coming through on the taste. Oh, okay. It's decided, it's decidedly in the Scotch family. That's nice.
The raisin is still sticking around. Even after I dove in, that raisin feel is still sticking around.
Okay.
It makes me feel like the Scotch, and it's not even 10 in the morning. So
yeah, I was getting some kind of fruit. I'll agree with it. I wasn't putting my finger on the fruit, but so I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions.
And at 40%, you are kind of susceptible to persuasion there, but at 80% or 80 proof, it sticks because the legs on the glass.
Yeah.
No, the oils that are in there. Just when I see that, I just know that the it's going to stick on your palate for a little bit longer. So you're able to enjoy it a little bit longer as well without having to dive in so many times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sticking around.
Yeah, sticking around. Yeah. Will, have you had that experience yourself when you tried the Pure Scott? What was your experience like?
Because of all the Bladnochs, and look, I drink a lot of cask strength whiskey. I mean, again, this probably says more about me than it does Scotch. When I find a drink of 40% Scotch like Pure Scott, I don't need to cut it down. I don't need to water it. It's just drink it straight. Probably a little bit too easy. Sometimes if I've got a lot of Scotch in my office, as I'm sure you guys do too. And look, for me, I'll just sit away and sip it of Pure Scott, and you look over at a bottle and you're like, well, there must be a hole in the bottom. It seems to be evaporating a bit too quick, but it really is some of those ones you just forget about. But look, again, for those people who aren't big neat spirit drinkers, perhaps they're going to want to mix this and cut this down to unlock some of those kind of sweeter kind of honey flavors. I mean, Pure Scott is pretty much 100%. In fact, it is 100% American oak. Vast majority of it is bourbon, a little bit of new oak as well. A lot of new oak in the next whiskey that we try, but this one here, it's got all of that American oak. I mean, if you talk to Nick, who is of course a PhD engineer and is of course a master distiller,
and you stole Nick from somewhere, did you not?
We did. We poached him from a little boutique distillery called Macallan.
Oh, those boutique. Okay, fair enough.
No, actually, so Nick is he's 6'7", and they redeveloped the distillery. And they forgot to build the doors high enough, so he had to go. So he just couldn't put him through that big renovation. They didn't think about them as a distiller, and so he was like, "No, I'm out of here." No, but seriously, the arrival of Nick was just so good for us because he's got this great international experience with Macallan in terms of the brand, but also of course his whiskey making knowledge is excellent. He's got a real kind of creative streak, and he really understands the storytelling about whiskey, and that's why we're so lucky to have him Don't tell him I said that. You'll get a big head, and he's very tall, so he'll fall over.
Mum's
but
yeah.
So the the chat with Nick about casks always brings you down a deep scientific rabbit hole, and he'll talk all about the different molecules and where the sweetness comes from, things like that. Some might say that takes away the magic of discovering new flavors in the Scotch, but there's been a lot of thought behind where each of these flavors is going to come from, from the cask. And I'm going to recommend a great book to you guys because it's not a competitor, but if you're ever really interested in learning all about casks,
yes,
check this book out. You can get it on Amazon. I know there should be an affiliate link. It's called Cask Management for Distillers.
Oh wow!
If you really want to geek out, it tells you about all the different kind of casks, where the flavors come from, what kind of flavors in the final Scotch come from when you do different finishes, maturation. I mean, this is what's on my desk that I've been reading recently. It's a pretty cool book, really helping me understand about different kind of sherry cask and bourbon cask and new oak and things like that. So I think there's a lot to be learned about where the flavors come from, because of course, unlike a lot of other whiskey categories, we can't add any flavor. There's no wild turkey honey equivalent in the Scotch world. You can't have a fireball or a ghost pepper or something like that. It's all from cask, grain, and where it was matured. So there's not a ability to influence it with anything but casks. And so
what was the name of that book again, Will?
Cask Management for Distillers.
Cask.
You get it on Amazon. Maybe you guys should set up an affiliate link for this one because it's a great book. It's like $20 or something like that. And if you're really a Scotch geek, I mean, there's a lot of Scotch books out there, but a lot of them kind of cater to a very broad audience about the kind of basics. But if you ever want to go a little bit further, I think this is a cool book because sometimes we'll be offered a cask and I'll be like, I really want to understand a little bit more about that. And this is a good book for me to understand. I mean, Nick's obviously the real expert in it, and it'll be a long time before I catch up to him. But stuff like this really helps me kind of understand his craft a bit more, and when we're telling stories about flavors.
And he became a mad scientist for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
the Dr. Nick jokes from The Simpsons. He's definitely no stranger to them. So. But he played basketball because he's pretty tall. He played basketball here in Australia for a few years on a I think he was on a scholarship to University of Melbourne. So he knows Australia and he knows about what we're like, and he's used to the quirks of working for an Australian boss, and that's quite a help when it comes to working halfway across the world. I mean, we haven't been to the distillery, David and I, for 2 years, and again, Nick's been fantastic to kind of lead the team without us all having to be in the same room. So it's been a great asset having him on.
No. Thank you for sharing the Pure Scott with us this evening. Well, it's just
Well, we got another one.
Yeah, we do.
So this one, the Pure Scott Virgin Oak, because you said that was finished in oak barrels. Yes.
Well, I mean, all Scotch is finished in oak barrels, but this was matured in a range of American oak barrels, and then we got them from a range of distillers and then blended it together. So with Pure Scott Virgin Oak, what we've done there is taken the blend that we made, so the exact same blend as Pure Scott, but then taken the finished product and then aged it again. So normally, you get the casks, you blend them together, and then the next day they get put into a bottle. Whereas with us, we've taken the blend, and rather than bottling it, we've taken it and put it back into a new cask and aged it again for around 9 months. But it's in brand new virgin oak casks, so the same cask that you're using to make bourbon. And this gives it a massive punch of that oaky flavor. New oak has got all those fresh, basically, untouched kind of compounds and molecules in the barrel and the wood that give it lots of vanilla, lots of sweet, and a real kind of oaky flavor to it. So this was actually a formulation that was designed for the US market. Looking at what can we do for an American consumer who loves that bourbon flavor and they love that slow sweet taste. And that's the virgin oak as the result of it. So it's a good market for us in the US.
I'm gonna pop the lid on this.
Here we go. Oh, such a lovely sound.
All right, there we go. The fresh open. All right. So, but why Virgin Oak 43? What does the 43 represent?
So it's 43% or 86 proof, and it's bottled at a higher strength because that's really what kind of carries the flavor. I've got like a Pavlovian response. I'm salivating when I hear that pop of the cork. You see,
I know. Oh God, it's like
breakfast time there, isn't it? Will?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a friend who always posts on Facebook as breakfast whiskey, but he's a doctor, so I worry whether that's the real situation or not. So.
There's no surgery today. What could go wrong?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're all finished in virgin oak casks, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. So the finished blend goes back into a cask at Bladnoch. So you can go to Bladnoch when you guys do that road trip. You'll probably be there before I will, and you'll be able to see a cask of pure Scott maturing. And that's unusual because, of course, blends are from multiple distilleries, so you can't visit a distillery and see a blend in a cask. But with pure Scott, you absolutely can. You can see those casks aging. So. It's got a lovely richness to it. I think pure Scott is exceptional. I'm even going to open my bottle and have a smell of it.
All right, fair enough.
Oh my!
Hey, got to start the day off some way.
So on the nose, similar.
Yeah, it's more. I get more oak off the nose than I did on the pure Scott.
And it's not an ethanol smell, but you can smell it's stronger. It has you can. I was picking up that it was stronger. And again, maybe I'm just susceptible that I know it's a slightly stronger, but I was smelling it was stronger, and then the taste.
Right. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm getting a little bit of sweetness on the nose, even because the oak is there, but the oak is providing that sweetness. Nose.
Right.
There's no missing it on the palate, that's for sure.
And it's the S word.
Ooh. Okay. All right. So
use the S word.
No, I ain't saying it because I hate that word. I'm not
Is it smooth? I bet you it's smooth.
Yeah,
smooth.
You got it. We just that word just is like
it seems to be overused. But it's fitting.
All right. So most Scotch for me.
Ooh. All right. Go
most
ahead.
scotches
for this aftertaste.
Right, most scotches for me, they hit me right up on the front. As far as that Scotch feel. The 43, I didn't get that. I don't know if it's because my palate has already been saturated with the first. No. This, I don't get that immediate like Scotch feel right off the bat. I get more of that. Gosh, I'm trying to put my nose on it, or lack of a better term. Oh my goodness, I'm actually really enthralled with the 43 because it's just hitting me in such a nice way.
Yeah.
It's just coating, my palate, but. At that, this is something that I could enjoy for an evening out with friends or what have you. If it was available, this is something I would definitely go and look for, in the stores or what have you, because it's
a lot of people blind taste it, can't even tell it's
one
Scotch.
sip. I'm done.
So that was the thing on the first taste on just the pure Scott. I was getting the peat straight away in the taste, not on the nose. And this again, no, I wasn't really getting much of a hint. I was getting more of the barrel on the nose. And then the first sip, I wasn't getting anything on the peat. But then as it sat, after a moment, the peat kicked in. Again, it's not overbearing. It's like, oh God, I've had some that are just like, it tasted like you bit a chunk of dirt. You had a piece of earth in your mouth. There. Some people love that though. Some people love that super.
I'm almost kind of reminiscent of it's like ginger is just hanging around.
Oh, ginger.
Yeah.
Okay.
This grows great with ginger beer.
Okay. Does it really?
Even Canada Dry, the ginger ale, it can go really well. But we've got some great cocktails. If you can head to our website with some recipes, and ginger plays a big part of them. And again, why it's also great in penicillin as well with that ginger, honey, lemon, and Scotch.
Man, that's just that the 43 is just hitting me in such a nice way. I'm really after two sips, I'm just enthralled.
After two sips, and now that I nose it again, I'm getting a little bit of the peat in the nose, but again, because it's on my tongue and it's there,
right? And it's nice. It's hanging around. It's getting sweeter as it lingers a little bit longer. It's just that is such a nice Scotch whiskey.
So I was expecting more, because the proof is slightly higher. I was expecting more of a bite, and when I sipped it, that's where I was like, oh, it's very smooth.
That damn word.
So was that your goal with this? Is that
Yeah,
look, it's definitely the goal to make Matt make all those noises. I mean, I'm sure your microphone picked them up, but I know you might get the.
I'm sure I'll get shit for it later.
Maybe he was ready on the big button to censor it when he started describing it. Well, it sounds like you need a button for smooth, but look, at the end of the day, it's different. It's very different to pure Scott. A lot of people don't perhaps first pick it as a Scotch whiskey when they're first tasting it. They might know it's a whiskey, but perhaps not a Scotch. The idea with the Virgin Oak isn't to kind of mask any of those flavors. It's to just develop other ones. And as I say, casks are really the main way that you're going to bring flavor to your final product. And the impact of the cask is undeniable. This is 9 months in a Virgin Oak casks after years of maturation in a range of casks. It's a great illustration of just how important they really are. And as I say, we've got a peated version. This one here, this was just in Australia at the moment, so sorry to tease you with it. But this one here is with a peated cask, and again, same base product. This is at 44.5, so 89 proof. And again, a different experience with the same matured scotches, just with a different barrel finish.
So if I didn't know it was like the barrel finish, I would have said you put a bourbon barrel in your blend. I would have called it. Oh, well, they added a bourbon into the blend, but then it would no longer be a Scotch,
right?
But so that's the way around it, is to barrel it up again and let the barrel do the work, and infuse that portion of the profile. That's nice. So these are readily available stateside.
Yeah. So look, the US is a challenging market. I won't lie.
We're huge, man.
Yeah, it's like 50 countries, really. Rather
Texas, than Texas alone, it's like
50 countries. You're not wrong.
So the best way, honestly, to find these is just to head to our website, bladnoch.com. Click that you're in the US, and we've got a partnership with Reserve Bar. And if you just go to our website, put your state in, they'll find a bottle and get it to you. And we're available in pretty much all the states. And if you're in a state where they don't deliver to, then you know a guy somewhere else, because you suffer not just with our products but with everything. Any of the real tightly controlled state liquor board places. But good availability in Florida, in New York, New Jersey, in California, Washington. We're in Colorado, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. Where else are we? Are we in?
You didn't say Michigan.
Oregon.
You didn't say Michigan.
Yeah. Michigan state liquor? Have you got a state liquor control, or is it open state?
I don't. Yeah, we got a liquor.
Like a liquor store, like a state liquor store in Michigan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That is a challenge. It really is, because the decisions are made by some faceless bureaucrat rather than somebody who really loves his or his Scotch. So it is a bit of a challenge, but I'm sure you can probably get from somewhere else. We're in Illinois, which I know is not too far from you guys. So.
No,
I don't know. I'm actually going to be in New York in a couple of weeks, I think. I'm not sure yet, but pretty certain I'm going to be around.
All right.
So safest way, go to our website and order a bottle, and it'll be on the way. So
yeah,
fair enough.
But you know what, Jamie, the price point,
it
is the MSRP, what I'm looking at here. And
I didn't even know. I didn't even look.
And I'm at winesearcher.com.
All right.
And on there, it's less than $35.
Oh, okay.
On the price point. And that is, for what I'm getting out of it.
No.
That is something I would keep on my shelf at all times.
Oh, yeah.
For that price point.
Yeah. So we got a rating, Will. It's screw, marry, kill.
Yeah.
It's like screw around town, maybe out and about. Kill is dead to me. I never tried again. Marry it, I'll buy it and bring it home. So Matt, screw, marry, kill.
I'm gonna marry this and take it home.
Fair play.
That's
all right,
me.
There you go.
You, Jamie?
We're wildly inappropriate. Will I'd marry this? Yes.
Yeah.
This would be a Scotch that I would like to work with at home.
Yeah.
We got a couple bartenders that we know, Will, and we bring them in and they dazzle us with their concoctions. And I think this would be something fun for Tara,
yeah,
our bartender, to
Mikey,
to work with. and do some magic with.
Or Mikey and August, I think they'd have some fun with it too.
Exactly. So I think it'll be fun. So in the States, with the whiskeys and the bourbons, all the rages are like store picks and single barrel picks and all that. I haven't really seen that in the Scotch world so much. That's a different beast, though. That's not something you guys do, or do you do special blends?
We absolutely do. So this is our store pick packaging. This one actually is one that we did internally. Have I got a store pick we did for a group of bars in Melbourne called Boilermaker House? And it was a nearly 19-year-old Moscatel cask finish, which is lovely. So this is the packaging that we do. We put a little strip label on here with the distilled, bottled, and then we put the little logo in here. There is a bit of interest. I've got a meeting later this week about a store that'll do it, but we only do kind of half a dozen a year worldwide store picks. So, the cynic in me says when you see a store pick which has got a sticker on it, you're like, is it just the same bottle that's in the store down the road with just a different sticker on it with a different store? Not with us. We put the barrel number on there, and each of the bottles are hand numbered, so the barrels are very different, and each of those are actually selected by Nick Savage as well. And he goes, okay, here are the 6 casks that we'll do this year.
Nice.
Pull some samples, and then we find kind of our top clients that can get it. But we're not going to be like the world of bourbons where you've got 150 store picks in 150 stores, and everyone wants it's a bit unique. It really is going to be for our closest partners. So I'm having a meeting later next week with a US store who's been a great supporter for a long time of Bladnoch, and they're looking to try and get their hands on a barrel. So
I can see somebody easily becoming a fan of the Bladnoch line and saying, I really want to do a store pick. So I can really see that happening quite easily. And then it's kind of exclusive. So,
well, we need to get you guys some of our single malts as well. So maybe build up your bar and see where the kind of the journey progresses when you can sing our single malt Bladnoch. Maybe when this little puppy comes on the shelf. Although for the entire US, the allocation is 720 bottles.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Wow. Okay.
That's a little hot.
we
globally
honored
made like 3,000 for the world, 3,400 bottles, and so you guys get a big percentage of that. But when you've only got such few casks as us, you can't do 100,000 bottles in a year, so it's pretty limited. So this one will be hard to find.
It would be a very big privilege to be able to experience that.
All right. So, Will, what's the website again when people want to try to find a store finder or are there recipes and things on the line as well?
Look, there are. Look, if you want to hear particularly about Pure Scott, it's just purescott.com, all one word, PURESCOT, 1T. We got a guy called Scott who follows us on Instagram who sends me a message every like 6 weeks going, can I have some free bottles? Because my name's Scott. I'm like, I feel like it's a road to using up our marketing budget and a lot of happy Scots. But and then we've got bladnoch.com, BLADNOCH.com. And then you can click on the US and you can find some on. You can actually just buy it on our website, and then Reserve Bar will find where the bottle is, and they'll get it out to you. I've got a couple of stores on there. I need to update our store finder with some few new ones, but or just send us an email, and we'd love to help. We get emails from all around the United States, from all sorts of places, going, where do I find a bottle? And actually, we've had some states pick us up because they had a customer saying, I want to find Bladnoch, and then we escalate it to a store, and they escalate it to a distributor, and then we get a call, and that's how, in fact, we're in Georgia. So we just had the team from our Georgia distributor come to Scotland and do a tour because there's a guy there's got like a local whiskey club, and he loves Bladnoch, and he got in touch with me. Basically he just kind of kept annoying the distributor in his liquor store and say, like, we have to get this in. Wow. And finally now they're a distributor, and so
hello, I'm here. Hello.
Oh, Will.
So big shout out to Jack Smith in Georgia.
Yeah, between your environmental efforts, your conservationist efforts that you guys are doing, what's in the bottle is amazing. What you guys are doing outside of the bottle is just as amazing through the nonprofits. Are there links on the website that folks can actually go and potentially donate to help with your efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. So on purescott.com, we've got a campaign at the moment with the citizens of the Great Barrier Reef to help us map out the impact of climate change on the coral in the Great Barrier Reef. So they call it the Census Project. And you can find out more about the different things that we're doing. We've got like pages all on our conservation and talk about some of our environmental ambassadors. But hey, look, the other way you can donate is you can buy a bottle of Pure Scott because 1% of it goes to causes. So I mean, then it's something for the environment and something for yourself. So you can feel good about your Scott drinking if you want to buy a bottle. So I am the commercial guy, you know what I mean? Like I'm still going to think about how many bottles I sell. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's brilliant. Will, thank you so much for being with us and the lovely taste.
Yes,
truly amazing. Everybody on your team has been astounding in getting us connected. It's like with this whole remote Australia, we're here, there, and everywhere in dates and times, and it was quite the juggling act. And we appreciate everybody on your team who did this to make it happen. So thank you and cheers.
Cheers. Honestly,
there you go.
Cheers.
Don't go anywhere.